All right. Want to start off talking about the economy, right? We had some new reports that came out. We've seen this slide. There aren't any updates. I just want to make sure that if this is your first time watching, that you are up to speed with the previous 4 episodes and the data and the information that we've been putting out. What we're looking at here is the predictions from the major financial houses or institutions about what is going to happen with the recession or the repression that we are currently heading towards. The recession, we are in a repression without a doubt. So basically, we know that the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters with negative GDP. We've only had one that's been recorded. That would be Q1 of this year. We're gonna have to get through Q2, so that's April, May, June. It means at the end of July is when we're actually gonna have the data. So we're gonna have to wait until July or August before we can formally say that we're in a recession. All right. So the good news about this is the major financial institutions here in the US and across the globe are predicting a V-shaped recovery. That has not changed. Previous episodes, we've talked about the different types of recoveries and people making up names and doing the best that they can to describe what's going on. V-shape is an actual term. It actually means something other than what someone is trying to say. So when we look at Q2, we have all the major financial institutions, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all predicting massive GDP losses. We're already seeing that. We're already feeling it. We get into Q3, all the financial institutions minus Bank of America are predicting positive GDP. That is the recovery. Q4, all the major institutions are predicting it. Bank of America, negative in Q3, the largest increase in Q4. All right, so there is no change to that. I want to start there before we get into the unemployment data. All right, so from here, there are 3 different sciences that we have to take into account when we're talking about the recovery from a pandemic. The first one is the business science, and that is what we're hearing a lot about. The economy has to get restarted. If it doesn't, we're going to have a major issue. All right, so when we're looking at the science, looking at the history of it, we're wanting to see how have economies rebounded from similar slowdowns or pandemics in the past. The second is the health science. We've been inundated with this since March. We're all well aware of the health science. All right. One thing that is very, very clear, right, is that there is a very real chance that there will not be a vaccine for this. There is still not a flu vaccine that is even close to being reliable. All right. So if people are holding out and they're going to insist upon the stay at home or the quarantine until there is a pandemic, until there's a vaccine, there's a very real chance you might be holding out for a few years. All right. So just keep that in the back of your mind. The administration has project, whatever it is, the Manhattan-like project to try to get a vaccine, and that's wonderful. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. We'll have to see how it goes. Everybody should obviously be hopeful that that's going to happen. The third one is the social science, right? And this is the one that we are dealing with more and more, especially in Southern California, throughout the country. This is the people behind what's going on, right? So the definition that we have up on the screen is after all the businesses are fully operational, which we're not there in California. We're getting there in San Diego, thankfully, right? Restaurants are opening, retail is opening. We're moving in the right direction. Once all the businesses are fully operational, once the restaurants are back on with whatever the social distancing and et cetera is, how long will it take for Americans to return to normal consumption? Restaurants, stuff like that are going to be relatively easy. But when we start talking about movies, sporting events, flying, right? All 3 of these types of sciences have to be accounted for. And if you're listening to one person who is only taking one of the 3 angles, you really need to know that. We're hearing a lot of scientists that are out talking purely about number 2. All right, and just so we don't all think that Ryan's some moron standing up here talking about science, right? I do have 2 master's degrees, one in organic and biological chemistry, a second in exercise physiology and biomechanics. So I do have a little bit of a background, as it may be, in terms of the science. Okay, when you're listening to somebody who is only talking from a health science perspective, you need to keep that in mind. You have to know that and understand that. When you're talking to somebody who does not care about what the health science says and only cares about the business, You also want to know that. All right, so these are the three different sciences that have to be blended by the federal government, the state governments, the county governments, and the city governments to all make this happen. And that is the big challenge that we're going through. All right, so here's the updated U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics weekly unemployment filings. This came out yesterday morning. 2.4 million more people applied for unemployment benefits as of May 16th. All right, so we can see we very clearly have already hit the peak. That was at the end of March, beginning of April, and we're coming down. All right, so these are the numbers. Nobody likes them, but here we are. This is an interesting study from the Becker-Friedman Institute for Economics at the University of Illinois, Chicago. 68% of the unemployed workers who are eligible for unemployment insurance will receive benefits that exceed their lost earnings. They got a pay raise. 68%. 20% of eligible unemployed workers will receive benefits at least twice as large as their lost earnings. The CARES Act, which is what is providing all of this, is actually providing income expansion rather than replacement for most of the unemployed workers. This is a potential issue. This is going to the business science. There have been a plethora, there's your $5 word of the day, of reports that have come out from across the country where business owners are having a very hard time getting their workers to come back to work because they get paid more by the federal government to sit on their couch, right? That is a potential problem, and it is something that everybody needs to keep their eye on. Right? So when we're talking now more specifically about San Diego, right? In the previous 4 episodes, we have spoken about San Diego, but we really haven't dug into the numbers, and that simply is because there aren't that many of them available. So a lot of these are predictions or extrapolations, primarily from Sandag. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is a chart that is very, very powerful because it's comparing a lot of things. On the left in red, that's 1933. That's the Great Depression. Orange is 11%. That's 2010. That's the Great Recession. Here is all the San Diego specific numbers. Pre-COVID, 3.1% unemployment, and you can see that we have now worked ourselves up to 30.1%. It's a lot of people that are not able to work right now in San Diego County or in the San Diego area, all right? Let me show you the other side of that coin, though. 30% of the people in our city are not able to work right now. 70% of us are. It's your choice how you want to look at that. That 70% of the people that live with us in our area, they're working. They're making things happen. The estimates from Sandag, as of May 9th, 510,000 people not working. It's a lot of people. 460,000 of those are associated with the coronavirus, according to Sandag. These are their estimates. The most affected zip code, Logan Heights, 42% unemployment. The least affected, Rancho Bernardo West, that's Del Sur, Forest Ranch, that type of area, 22.8%. And these are the real world numbers as best that Sandag can estimate. Taking a look at some of the newer data that's come out, this again is from Sandag. This is the projections in lost sales in San Diego. This is money that is not coming back, right? Maybe it gets spent in the future. Maybe tourists do come here. But in general, this is the real world, what the businesses here are going through. Right? So when we look on the left, businesses selling recreational products have lost 80% of their sales. They used to make $10, they're now making $2. It's a big deal. Miscellaneous transportation, down 80%. Apparel, 75%. Dining, down 75%. Auto sales, new and used, down 75%. Service stations or gas stations, 65%. Department stores, 50%. Furniture and appliance stores. You can see what we have going on there. This is what it looks like in terms of the industries that have been hit the hardest in San Diego. We could logically extrapolate out that the people that are working in recreational products or retail, apparel or retail, dining or the service industry. We know these people are already coming back to work. We can see that. Turn on the news. It's there. So let's put this in a little bit of perspective. That's some gloomy news that we just had right there. Let's compare this at a bigger scale to the Great Depression and the Great Recession. Right? We need to take a look at the depth, and we need to take a look at the length. Here's the Great Depression, 25%. Move it over to the right, it took 12 years to get back to where they were. That's a lot of depth and a lot of length. When we look at the Great Recession, 9 years, 10%. When we take a look, now these are national numbers. When we take a look at Goldman Sachs projections, they're projecting 25% nationally, or at 14.7 right now. That number's probably going to go up in the next month. All right. So when we're looking at what we're going through right now, the Great Repression, a lot of depth. We just saw that with the San Diego specific numbers. Now we're looking back at the national stage. 25% of the country won't have a job. 75% will. And that 25% is going to decrease. All the experts are projecting as early as Q3, August. All right, so a little perspective there for you.